Sexual conduct in the first degree, multiple variables, an account of unlawful imprisonment, an account of assault by strangulation. The maximum penalty for the CSC is up to life in prison, for the unlawful imprisonment up to 15 years, and for the assault by strangulation up to 10 years. So with me is Chief Wiles of the Grand Valley Township Police, Detective Todd Gilbert, who's the officer in charge of the case, and we'll just entertain the questions we can. Just please bear in mind, I am and they are constrained by the Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct, Rules 3.6 and 3.8, so there's certain things we just are not going to be able to get into. But having said that, fire away.
Chief, can you start with what happened?
We were called down to a doctor's office on Holly Road for a trouble call where a woman called for assistance and responded and took her complaint.
Can you elaborate on what happened, what you found when you got there?
I would defer that to Prosecutor Layton if he chooses to.
Let me give you an oversight of what happened. The victim in this case has a physical ailment and she's been suffering from pain, so she's looking for a cure and for relief from her pain. She went to see the defendant in this case. It was her fourth appointment. During this appointment, she was placed in some kind of a semi-conscious state, during which she felt something occur that she felt was out of the ordinary. She screamed, jumped off the table to the extent that she could. Because of her physical ailment, she uses a walker. She basically fell out of the room, stumbled out the door, all the while screaming to alert others within the suite that she had been sexually assaulted. Her walker was in the waiting room. Her father was in the waiting room. He heard the screams, as did a medical doctor in the suite and the medical doctor's wife, who's also the office manager. They all came to her when she alerted them, and the defendant at that time left the suite. That's essentially what happened.
Can you say about how old the victim is?
Do we know how old she is?
48.
So is there evidence that has been collected?
Well, we have the statement of the victim. We have the statements of the medical doctor in the suite, his wife, I believe 2 other individuals who worked there, the dad of the victim who was in the waiting room. We have all their statements. We also have statements from 3 other women who have previously made complaints against this individual. In 2 of those cases, it did not rise to a criminal charge. In 1 case, there was a criminal charge issued, but the case was dismissed at some point during the proceedings.
Well, so there was 2 that didn't rise to
Correct.
Criminal. Okay. Is there a concern? I guess this guy's been practicing for 40 years. Is there a concern that there might be others out there?
I'll let the chief speak to that.
Yeah, the last thing we want to see happen is this type of thing happen to anybody else. So we are asking community members if they have any information or if they have been victimized to please come forth and contact our office so we can talk to you and find out what happened and see if there's something more that we can do to assist them.
So you're saying if he left the suite, you mean he left his office area?
He left the building.
It's kind of like fleeing, it sounds like. People are screaming and he takes off.
He left the building.
What happened? How did you guys catch up with him then? And at what point did you catch up with him, Chief?
Yeah, when our officers were on scene, we learned that he left and made several phone calls to his personal cell phone to try to contact him. Several hours later, he returned that call.
How long ago was this incident?
17.
April 17th.
Was he taken into custody after that? Or did there have to be interviews conducted before that?
He has retained a lawyer, and the lawyer has been cooperating with our office and turned him in this morning, and he was arraigned.
Can you talk a little bit about just the vulnerability? I mean, when you're in this semi-conscious state, how vulnerable are you to this sort of behavior, I guess?
I would say certainly more vulnerable than if you were not in a semi-conscious or a semi-hypnotic state. it's concerning to me that this happened in this kind of an atmosphere. Fortunately, the victim was cognizant enough to realize what was happening and was able to react and alert others within the suite to put a stop to it then and there. And but it's an unusual set of circumstances.
And the assault by strangulation, obviously you tried to keep her in the room at that point. I mean.
No, I don't think that's necessarily what happened. I think that
There was there's the two other charges: assault by strangulation and unlawful imprisonment, and yeah, I mean it's.
Is that our theory?
Yeah.
He was trying to keep the strangulation is really suffocation,
Right.
where he was trying to keep her from making noise
Right.
and screaming and prevent her from
Right.
leaving the room as she wanted to, which is the theory of the unlawful
Right.
imprisonment.
There you go.
But it wasn't strangulation as
Right.
the name suggests.
But to make it more understandable, she came to, or got her wits about her, and something was happening that should not have been happening.
Right. And she tried to leave, and he tried to restrain her.
And he's out on bond. Is he allowed to continue working at this point, or?
I don't know. I wasn't at the arraignment today. Do we know if there was a bond that was even set? Do you
don't
know?
have
Yeah,
any
there was a
information.
$25,000 cash bond of which he posted. I don't think there was any restrictions on that bond as far as working.
Thank you.
You good? Anybody else?
Chief, for the record, can I have you say and spell your first and last name for me, please?
Sure. Ron Wiles, W-I-L-E-S.
Thank you.
Detective, can you do the same again, please?
Detective Todd Gilbert, Toddgilbert.
Let me reiterate what the chief said, and that is that if there's anybody out there who sees your broadcasts or your printed story, we would really want those individuals to come forward and tell us what may have happened to them so that we can fully investigate any other allegations that may come up as a result of this brave woman coming forward and telling what has happened to her.
What number should they call Detective Gilbert if there are such people?
Anybody that's coming forward should reach out to our police department at 810-424-2611, and that's Grand Blanc Township Police Department.
Did it disturb you a little that no parameters on bond were given to, hey, shut down your office while we hash this out? You can still see people?
Well, I think that's difficult to do under the court rules, but certainly we know that the Grand Blanc Township Police are going to be watching. So I would suspect that it's unlikely we're going to get anything more, at least in the immediate future. The one thing that does disturb me is that this individual holds himself out as a licensed or certified hypnotherapist. And we were in contact with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs at the Attorney General's office. And the fact of the matter is the state of Michigan does not license hypnotherapists. So whatever license or certification this individual has or claims to have obtained comes from some organization that is not really regulated, that we don't really know what it is. And so one of the things we're going to continue to do is to look into where this alleged certification comes from, and also the educational background of this individual, because he uses the title doctor. I believe he claims to be a PhD. So we're still on the trail to determine precisely what school gave him whatever degrees he may or may not have. Good?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.